Hello and good evening, people. Happy December 8th.
Happy December. Yes.
I was thinking about that earlier today. I'm like, it's like 3 weeks, right? It's less than 3 weeks till Christmas.
Yeah.
Like it's
And have you ordered anything from Amazon lately?
um no, but Vanessa has and it showed up. I don't know.
Oh, no, it just things seem to be taking longer than normal.
Oh. No, I haven't noticed that. And the things that I'm looking at are actually not Amazon based. I know, it seems weird. No,
I
well,
prefer to buy everything on Amazon.
well, it's Sam and I had an interesting conversation the other day while we were for Jesse's wedding. Vanessa wanted to
Hmm.
get a new dress for that, and we were at J.C. Penney, and Sam was miserable, And I'm like, I think that this is one of those things that it's maybe a generalization, but we have to understand in terms of gender and how shopping works. When it goes to like brick and mortar shopping, men are more like hunters. It's like, I know what I want, I'm going to get it, and then I'm going to leave. That's
Right.
it, right? And
You go,
for women, it's almost more of a social thing in many
right? Oh,
ways.
yeah. Yeah.
However, like Vanessa and I are exactly the opposite when it comes to online shopping. Online shopping, I'm like, I'm going to check out 55 different options and research them and pick the right one. Where Vanessa's, that looks fine. Buy it. You know,
I think Kathy and me are the same way.
you just
I
find.
research it. I look at the
Oh,
different
okay.
reviews. Okay, what's the positives and negatives? I look at the reviews online. Yeah. Well, here's this one, but this one's close. What's yeah, all that.
Yeah.
But in line, yeah. Grocery shopping, you go to the aisle, you need what you need, you get out.
Yeah. Actually, that's why I like
Boom.
Trader Joe's. They don't give you very many options. It's like you can have crunchy peanut butter or creamy peanut butter, and those are your options, and they're both good. They don't like drown you in 55 different options that are hard to understand. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Anyways,
I was in Pittsburgh this morning.
that's right. How was your trip?
It was good. I got really confused by something. When I got there on Monday and I was driving to the hotel, I was in downtown and I was driving on Tony Dorsett Way. And I went, just like you're
That's
doing,
weird.
that doesn't make any sense to me because he was a Dallas Cowboy.
Right.
Why would the street on which the Heinz Stadium
Yeah.
be called Tony
Tony
Dorsett?
Dorsett.
So I
Yeah.
asked. He played at University of Pittsburgh. He played at Pitt.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not a good reason.
It, he's got all kinds of records there at Pitt.
Yeah. He was a great running back.
Yeah, yeah. Drove me crazy because he would just run through. I mean, yeah. Anyway, thought I would share that with you because I thought about you. I'm like, I think
Yeah.
Brian would appreciate that for the same reason that I did, which is, oh, that doesn't seem to make sense. Well, maybe they just respected him so much because of the rivalry during the 70s that they're like,
That's
yeah,
what I
man.
thought.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
it's because he went to school there. Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
guess that makes a little bit of sense, but I still don't agree with it.
Yeah.
I'd, I'd rather have Jerome Bettis or I don't know, a variety of others. Anyways, so I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you had safe travels.
Yeah, I'm glad to be home too. It was I'm running on fumes right now. I got up at midnight our time this
Oh
morning.
no.
Yeah. And I've just been pacing around the house trying not to like get too comfortable because I knew if I did that
You'd be out.
I'd be done. I'd be done for. But I'm looking forward to the conversation as we kind of focus in on what this podcast is about. Talking about the message from Sunday, which talking about a little bit about grief.
Grief is this Sunday, this coming Sunday.
Oh wait, is it?
Yeah.
You mentioned
We
grief.
talked about the Psalm 23 this last week. Wow, you are tired.
No, that's right. We did talk about Psalm 23. But the thing that I remembered was you talking immediately about grief. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
I did mention that I'm going to talk about grief the following week because I wanted to put that conversation in light of this.
Never mind. Humble apologies.
So save all those great ideas and thoughts for next week.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's it's certainly a topic that I could spend a lot of time on. But but what's interesting to me about Psalm 23 is my great grandma, who to me is my great model for. I've mentioned this before. When I was awfully scared when we moved here from Wyoming because of theft. There were we had to start locking our doors. We didn't have to do that in Wyoming. And my parents were like, yeah, if you leave the doors open, somebody's going to break in. And I was really scared that somebody was going to break in while we were there. And what I would do is I would reflect on my grandma and my great grandmother and her great faith and go, like if she believes and I trust her, then I'm fine. And if it's my time, it's my time. And I just took peace in that. And she loved Psalm 23 and would quote it to me. And, in her Bible, I have a copy of her Bible that she got in the early 1900s where she's got that highlighted. I've actually, it's something that I've studied and because I love her and who she was. And it's very inspiring to me. With or without her, it's very inspiring.
It's been loved for who knows how long. It's got to be the most popular psalm in the Bible.
Yeah,
it's got to be.
Do you think that it's hope in the face of? I think that's what a lot of people see. It's like, listen, you can trust Him, and even when things are difficult, you can trust Him.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be that.
Yeah,
that it's frequently been read at funerals.
Yeah.
And it's not really a psalm for death. It's a psalm for life. It's for, because memorials and funerals are not for the dead, but for the living.
Yeah.
Really, it's the comfort in the middle of difficulties that God cares about me and is going to take care of me, and that my loved ones are going to be with Him and I'll meet them, in His eternal home. And it's just such a beautiful psalm about how God's relationship is with us, which was the basic point, is that, God's going to take care of you, and to remember that this is your relationship with God because of Jesus. Got to remember that unconditional positive regard.
Yeah. I just want to affirm you for the fact that you have that's something that you reference all the time. I mean, I reference it all the time too, but I'm grateful that you do, because it's one of those things where you kind of have to train your brain when you start to think ill of somebody to go, let's rethink that. Let's reframe that.
I know this is completely off topic, but it is interesting. I was reading something else, and unfortunately I cannot remember the exact context of it, but they referenced that phrase.
Yeah.
And it's from the 1960s originally.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Maybe you did. Some psychologist or whatever. And there has been some pushback to it that I was not aware of. And the art, I know where it was. It's irrelevant. But here's the nuance that the commentator had made about it is unconditional positive regard for the best part of you. Meaning that, like, if you have somebody who's like, say, a drug user or someone who's not living in the way that they're supposed to, and it's obvious, I mean, that you can't argue with that, but I have positive regard for that part of you who wants to be a better person. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
So I'm trying to get the dogs to be quiet. They're concerned about something. Well, I don't disagree with that. I think that it's not a blanket assignment, right? It doesn't mean that you blindly give people the benefit of the doubt in any scenario.
And that's the pushback. Yeah.
Right. There are people, let's say in my family, who I love dearly, and I want to, and I do believe their intentions are good, and yet I still have to have appropriate boundaries to say, yeah, but however, in this situation, they don't get the benefit of the doubt because I know who they are. I need to be respectful of myself. And in many ways, that phrase is introduced if you're a therapist and you're working with a client, that rather than apply some form of judgment on their actions or whatever, to allow yourself as the therapist to process that, to receive what they're sharing with you in the most positive light that you can, and then work from there. I mean, that's really kind of the basis behind it. I do find it useful in those kind of random situations where it's not an everyday thing. It's like, where do I apply this? And I think really in a situation where you don't know somebody, when you don't love them, and when I say you don't love them, I mean you have not walked alongside them enough to say, I care so much about you and understand what your life is. I know what you're passionate about. It's like your neighbor that you hardly ever see, give them the benefit of the doubt rather.
Right.
If you've hung around with them long enough to know that they're a pain,
right.
Go from there. Anyway, sorry for sidetracking there.
Oh yeah, no, it just and for me the way that helps me is in dealing with someone who, at the moment of their doing things, let's say they're just not being very nice, and it's obvious that they're not being a very nice person. That phrase means that I'm going to believe that there's a part of them that doesn't want to be like this, that wants to be a better person.
Right.
Right. And and parsing out that there's a part of them that are just jerks.
Sure.
Right. I mean, but what I have positive regard for, that part of that person who does in fact not want to be seen as not nice.
Yeah. It's, the way I try to look at it is this is a person who's doing the best they can in their current circumstance.
Yeah.
And the best that they do in that circumstance, hello, Milo, may not be great. Right.
No.
And I know that about myself, where, I want to be kind, I don't want to be selfish. I want to, to put other people before me. And then I catch myself going, but in this situation, I have to do this or whatever. For example, on the flight to Pittsburgh, I had a very limited time to make my connecting flight. Otherwise, I was getting in at 1:00 in the morning or something like that, and having to get up at 5 or whatever to get ready for work. And I'm like, I need to assert myself to get through here, and I wasn't happy about that. And I'm sure people were like, why is this guy so pushy? In other times where I get emotionally triggered or something like that, and I'm snappy and unkind or whatever, in that moment, it may feel like the appropriate response. And upon reflection, it's like, oh, I really could have done better in that situation. And so I think that's how I apply it. If I see somebody who is doing something that I'm like, wow, that's not kind, that you're being a jerk, whatever it is, I know that that's not who you are, and yet that's how you are responding to the situation. I'm going to acknowledge that I don't approve or condone of your behavior, and I still love you, and I know where your heart is.
Right. At least that there's a part of their heart that wants to be better, doesn't want to be like that.
Yeah, some people that I've known who struggle with substance abuse, let's say, or have mental health challenges, right? That they want to do better, And just like in the same way we'd like to avoid sin, we do
Right.
our best, and we're ultimately gonna
Right.
fail. That this is one of those things that I've always been challenged with, especially being raised Catholic. Is like, well, what's the point of confession? If you're going to just confess whenever, like, what's the point of even caring whether or not you're doing good or bad when you know you can just take your etch a sketch of sin and shake it out, and you're back to you got a clean slate. And it's the whole idea that your intention is to be the best person you can be, that you continue to improve regardless, and knowing that you're still going to screw up. And yeah,
I am really just derailing this. So, have you ever read any Martin Luther? Not Martin Luther King, Martin Luther.
I've read some. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the main things he struggled with.
Yeah.
Was that whole issue of, well, how do we do this? And
well, he lived in a time, of course, when you could proactively confess to sins. Like there was a whole group of, this is weird, but a whole group of like Catholic assassins that they would get kind of preemptive. They could confess ahead and be absolved of their sin before they went and committed it.
Right.
And there were, you can pay a certain amount of money to absolve your sins, and so there was so much corruption there that the whole intention behind it was just, and that's where we're grateful for Luther coming in and going, this is not what we had intended, and we need to make a significant adjustment to get back in alignment with what Christ meant to begin with. We're
that's
way
a
off
whole
track.
discussion,
Yeah,
which would be interesting to have sometime. So
I hope we're not driving people crazy today,
because we're all over. But well, you thought we were going to talk about grief, and this does have. This whole conversation about God's intention for you, it does have to do with grief. In that, in the middle of the death of a loved one, can you trust that God's still good?
Well, yeah. The one of the big takeaways for me, and it was a reinforcement of what I already believe, is that walking through the valley of the shadow, whatever we call that, there's maybe some people make the assumption that, hey, when life's really hard, there's God, which is true, but sometimes he walks us through that. He is the one that he's the shepherd, and he's got to get us from here to there.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about, the challenges we've had as a family over, the past 4 years, that it's not like he abandoned us. I'm just happen to be in a position right now where I recognize, in order to get where we are now, we had to go through that, and there was no other way for us to get where we are. There's no other way, and so there's a peace, PEACE, in knowing that he is leading us through these difficulties. That there's something to be learned. There's some, and even then we are protected in that. And I think it's hard to process, and I've struggled with that myself sometimes, when I'm like, okay, God, I expect that you're leading me through this. This experience is important in some way, and could you get to the point? Could you go ahead and get to the point? Because I'm hurting,
Yeah. Can you hurry up and finish this thing? But it's an act of faith, isn't it? Where sometimes you can't see where he's leading you. You can't see the green pasture on the other side. All you can see is the valley, and you just go, okay, God, I'm going to believe that somehow on the other side of this, there's something good for me.
Yeah.
The way Habakkuk put it is, in the last chapters, there's no vines on the no grapes on the vine, there's no cows on the hills, there's no wheat in the fields. Yet I'm still going to believe that God is good.
Yeah. There's so much evidence of that, going back, to the earliest book of, with Job, that regardless of circumstance, I will be praising his name.
Yeah.
That he loves us and guides us and walks alongside us in all those circumstances. It's hard to see when you're in the midst of it. It's much easier from my perspective to look back and go, oh gosh, the whole footprints thing.
The whole footprints thing. Yeah. And so that's kind of what I wanted to make sure I hit that before we just talk about, grief again. I mean, how many times have I talked about grief? But someone this week in our family, in our church family, lost somebody. Yeah. So, and so, and then I'm going to be doing another funeral Saturday it's a community person. Okay. So, I don't know, but he was in his 20s at least. I know. Yeah. Just tragic.
Yeah.
So grief is there, it's always, there's always something to grieve.
Yeah. We had we'll talk more about it next week, but we had an interesting conversation around that topic in our house about the nature of grief. How does grief may diminish, but does that mean that the way that we miss somebody diminishes?
Oh, probably not.
Yeah. And that was there was a bit of a debate, a philosophical debate between me and Sam about that topic.
Interesting.
That my assertion was, you don't stop missing them, but your grief diminishes. I don't know if I'm right. I have limited experience. I have more than him.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, that's a big, deep question for a 13-year-old?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I couldn't have answered that question even close when I was 13, even 20, even 30, even 40. Not until I lost my parents.
Yeah. I think at the point where grief cuts you down to your knees, do you go, okay, thank you, God, for this perspective, and I hate it?
Yeah. And even then, I mean, will we really get it until maybe we're 80 and we've lost our spouse?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, both of us know that there's people in our church who've lost their husbands 20 years ago, and they still miss them just as much.
Yeah.
Some people who've lost their children. I know 2 people in our church have lost their children at a young age. Mm-hmm. I don't know, long time ago, and they still. One of them was crying on their birthday the other day.
Well, that's that one I can't even ponder.
That's a beyond. I mean, parents is one thing, grandparents, spouse, okay, but your child. Oh, I can't go there.
We're all over the place today, but
I don't care.
But when I think about that specifically, like I think about when I pass, whenever that happens, I think about my own grief, which I won't have at not hanging out with my kids anymore. That, or that if I die before Vanessa, for example, that I don't want to leave them, to wallow is a bad word, to struggle with grief.
Drown.
Not because I'm all that. It's just, we know what it's like to have lost, and if we could protect them or shield them or whatever, we absolutely would. And yet it's a thing.
And all of these things, especially the big griefs, but sometimes even the little ones, is where the issue really becomes quite, what's the word? Powerful, personal, significant, of, is God good? And that's why I wanted to start with that. Because it is, because life is hard, and there's a lot of things to grieve, whether it's the death of a loved one or it's the little things of, you didn't get a job you want, you can't. I mean, and that's the thing that's new for me, is the grieving of the little things. You go to the store and the butter that you wanted is not there, and that sounds so trivial, but you wanted that butter and you didn't get it, and it's like, bummer. I don't get what I wanted.
Well,
That's still a grief.
I'm watching parents this time of year. I just heard about, I think it's Magic Mixies or something like that. It's I don't know, it's a toy that it's the toy of the season, and parents are really
can't get it, can they?
can't get it. And
There's a grief.
There's a grief. 2 or 3 years ago. Oh, no, I guess it's 4 years ago now. When we kind of, as a family, hit that big valley, and the Christmas season came, and we realized that it wasn't going to be anything like we'd ever experienced before. That our ability to, to make it that kind of season, it wasn't there. And to me, I grieved so heavily during that, because I'm like, I'm letting people down. I can't provide for them.
Right. All of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really good to acknowledge that, when we talk about grief, we experienced grief during the pandemic, all those lost opportunities, not just people who we lost, but those opportunities to be together, not to gather in the same space for worship.
Right. So many things, little things to big things.
Yeah.
So, and in all of that, the fundamental question, and I'll start with it on Sunday, is believing that God loves you and is for you. And nothing else, the rest of it doesn't make sense until you get that piece down.
It's that whole foundational bit. Like, it's like, did Christ die on the cross, and was he resurrected? And if you believe that, that's the foundation for everything else. But you need to start there. You really need to start there, because everything comes from that. And so if you believe that he is good, then that's the prism through which you view all these other things, all these experiences that you have. You get to filter that and go, wow, this is terrible. I don't know what's going on. This is, life is really hard. Well, yeah, but if he's good, so I can celebrate, because somehow this is good for me. I don't know how yet, but somehow this is good for me.
Preach it. And it makes no sense to the world, but it does through faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're out of time.
All right. We got a couple minutes. I'm just going to hit on a couple quick things, because it is Christmas season. First thing, Brian and I have been talking about maybe making some subtle changes to the format of the podcast that you'll see in the new year. We're still working on details behind that, but we're a year in, and we're still having fun. We also understand that there's maybe opportunities to tweak things a little bit, and hopefully make it even more meaningful to those of you who've been joining us. And then last year, my family did a little sing-along on the back porch that we broadcast. And so on the 22nd, 2 weeks from tonight, when we would normally do the podcast, we're going to do a little back porch. I'm not even sure if we're going to be on the back porch. We're going to do a sing-along again. My family said we'll only do it if we get to practice first. So we'll practice this time, and we'll figure out how that goes.
Oh, but tell them that they don't need to practice. They're wonderful as they are. Well, the miscues is part of the charm.
Right. If it's too good, if it comes across as too rehearsed, it ceases to be that family that you like down the street. That's kind of goofy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We loved being invited into your house.
Or on the porch, your choice.
Or on the porch. That's still your house.
Yeah.
Anyways, you guys have a great night. Thanks for connecting with me, Joe. You have a great week. We'll see you guys on Sunday.
Thanks all. Take care.